I have done 30 plus certifications and am here to guide you throughout your certification journey. In this video, we will be covering some important topics and questions related to those topics of the Amazon SAA-C03 exam. You can find the complete PDF of this video and our practice questions through the link down in the description. Let's discuss core AWS architectural principles. We have scalability, design systems that can handle increased load, scale horizontally by adding more instances. We have reliability, build fault tolerant systems, use redundancy, and automated recovery. We have security, implement security at all layers, protect data with encryption and access controls. Let's take a compute services overview. EC2, virtual servers in the cloud, choose from various instance types. Lambda, run code without managing servers, pay only for compute time used. ECS, run and manage Docker containers, integrate with other AWS services. About AWS storage solutions, we have S3, object storage for scalability, store and retrieve any amount of data. ERS, block storage for EC2 instances, choose from various volume types, and EPS, file storage for multiple EC2 instances, shared file system access. Some networking fundamentals in AWS, VPC, isolated network in the cloud, control your networking environment. Route 53, scalable DNS server, route traffic to your applications. CloudFront, content delivery network, distribute content globally. Exam preparation tip: utilize official Amazon documentation, training materials, and practice exams to prepare effectively for the SAA C03 exam. Other than that, watch this video to boost the quality of your preparation. To the important questions. Question 1. Company uses a Microsoft SQL Server database. The company's applications are connected to the database. The company wants to migrate to an Amazon Aurora PostgreSQL database with minimal changes to the application code. Which combination of steps will meet these requirements? Choose two. Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. Option A, this is incorrect. AWS SCT converts database schema, not application queries. Babelfish helps avoid query rewrites. Then we have D. This is also incorrect. RDS proxy improves connection pooling but does not facilitate SQL Server compatibility or migration. Then we have E. This is also incorrect. AWS DMS migrates data but does not rewrite application queries. As such, the combination of steps that will meet these requirements is enable Babelfish on Aurora PostgreSQL to run the SQL queries from the applications and migrate the database schema and data by using the AWS Schema Conversion Tool and AWS Database Migration Service. Thus, the correct options are B and C. About the options, B. Babelfish allows Aurora PostgreSQL to understand TSQL, minimizing changes to application code. About C. AWS Schema Conversion Tool converts the database schema and AWS Database Migration Service migrates the data. Question 2. A company runs an application on Amazon EC2 instances in a private subnet. The application needs to store and retrieve data in Amazon S3 buckets. According to regulatory requirements, the data must not travel across the public internet. What should a solutions architect do to meet these requirements most cost effectively? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A. Deploy a NAT gateway to access the S3 buckets. NAT gateway routes traffic through the public internet and incurs additional costs. Then we have B. Deploy AWS Storage Gateway to access the S3 buckets. AWS Storage Gateway is used for hybrid cloud storage, not for private S3 access within AWS. Then we have C. Deploy an S3 interface endpoint to access the S3 buckets. S3 interface endpoints use AWS private link and incur data transfer costs, making them less cost effective than gateway endpoints. As such, The solution architect should deploy an S3 gateway endpoint to access the S3 buckets. Thus, the correct option is D. An S3 gateway endpoint enables private connectivity between EC2 instances and S3 without using the public internet, meeting regulatory requirements cost effectively. Question 3. Company runs its production workload on Amazon EC2 instances with Amazon Elastic Block Store volumes. A solutions architect needs to analyze the current EBS volume cost and to recommend optimizations. The recommendations need to include estimated monthly saving opportunities. Which solution will meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A. Use Amazon Inspector reporting to generate EBS volume recommendations for optimization. Amazon Inspector focuses on security vulnerabilities, not cost optimization for EBS. Then we have B. Use AWS Systems Manager reporting to determine EBS volume recommendations for optimization. AWS Systems Manager helps manage instances and patching but does not provide EBS cost recommendations. Then we have C. Use Amazon CloudWatch metrics reporting to determine EBS volume recommendations for optimization. Amazon CloudWatch monitors performance metrics but does not generate cost optimization recommendations. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements is to use AWS Compute Optimizer to generate EBS volume recommendations for optimization. Thus, the correct option is D. AWS Compute Optimizer analyzes EBS volume usage and provides recommendations for optimization along with estimated monthly savings. Question 4. A company runs a web application on multiple Amazon EC2 instances in a VPC. The application needs to write sensitive data to an Amazon S3 bucket. The data cannot be sent over the public internet. Which solution will meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have B. Create an internal network load balancer that has the S3 bucket as the target. An internal network load balancer cannot be used with S3 as S3 is a service, not an instance-based target. Then we have C. Deploy the S3 bucket inside the VPC. Create a route in the VPC route table to the bucket. S3 cannot be deployed inside a VPC. It is a regional service accessed via endpoints. Then we have D. Create an AWS Direct Connect connection between the VPC and an S3 regional endpoint. AWS Direct Connect is unnecessary for accessing S3 privately from within the same AWS region and is more expensive. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements is to create a gateway VPC endpoint for Amazon S3, create a route in the VPC route table to the endpoint. Thus, the correct option is A. A gateway VPC endpoint for S3 enables private connectivity from the VPC to S3 without using the public internet. Question 5. A company uses Amazon RDS with default backup settings for its database tier. The company needs to make a daily backup of the database to meet regulatory requirements. The company must retain the backups for 30 days. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A. Write an AWS Lambda function to create an RDS snapshot every day. Writing a Lambda function to create snapshot adds unnecessary complexity compared to using automated backups. Then we have C. Use AWS Systems Manager maintenance windows to modify the RDS backup retention period. AWS Systems Manager maintenance windows is not used for modifying RDS backup retention settings. Then we have D. Create a manual snapshot every day by using the AWS CLI. Modify the RDS backup retention period. Manually creating snapshots every day increases operational overhead and is not the most efficient solution. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead is to modify the RDS database to have a retention period of 30 days for automated backups. Thus, the correct option is B. Modifying the RDS backup retention period to 30 days ensures daily automated backups with no manual intervention, minimizing operational overhead. Question 6. Company wants to build a map of its IT infrastructure to identify and enforce policies on resources that pose security risks. The company's security team must be able to query data in the IT infrastructure map and quickly identify security risks. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, use Amazon RDS to store the data, use SQL to query the data to identify security risks. Amazon RDS is a relational database and is not optimized for querying complex relationships in IT infrastructure. Then we have C, use Amazon Redshift to store the data, use SQL to query the data to identify security risks. Amazon Redshift is a data warehouse optimized for analytics, not real time relationship mapping. Then we have D, use Amazon DynamoDB to store the data, use PartyQL to query the data to identify security risks. Amazon DynamoDB is a NoSQL database that lacks built in graph querying capabilities, making it less suitable for infrastructure mapping. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead is to use Amazon Neptune to store the data and use SparkQL to query the data to identify security risks. Thus, the correct option is B. Amazon Neptune is a graph database that efficiently maps IT infrastructure relationships and allows security teams to query and analyze connections using SparkQL, making it ideal for identifying security risks. Question 7. Company has an on-premises business application that generates hundreds of files each day. These files are stored on an SMB file share and require a low latency connection to the application servers. A new company policy states all application generated files must be copied to AWS. There is already a VPN connection to AWS. The application development team does not have time to make the necessary code modifications to move the application to AWS. Which service should a solutions architect recommend to allow the application copy files to AWS? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A. Amazon Elastic File System. Amazon EFS is a Linux-based file system and does not support SMB natively. Then we have B. Amazon FSX for Windows File Server. Amazon FSX for Windows File Server provides an SMB file system but is not designed for seamless integration with on-premises storage without application changes. Then we have C, AWS Snowball. AWS Snowball is used for large scale offline data transfers rather than continuous file copying over a VPN. As such, the service that the solutions architect should recommend is AWS Storage Gateway. Thus, the correct option is D. AWS Storage Gateway service enables hybrid storage between on-premises environments and the AWS cloud. It provides low latency performance by caching frequently accessed data on premises while storing data securely and durably in Amazon Cloud Storage Services. Question 8. A company needs a secure connection between its on-premises environment and AWS. This connection does not need high bandwidth and will handle a small amount of traffic. The connection should be set up quickly. What is the most cost-effective method to establish this type of connection? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A. Implement a client VPN. Client VPN is for individual users, not for connecting entire on-premises environments. Then we have B. Implement AWS Direct Connect. AWS Direct Connect provides a dedicated high bandwidth connection but is more expensive and slower to set up. Then we have C. Implement a Bastion host on Amazon EC2. A Bastion host is used for secure remote access to EC2 instances, not for establishing the network connectivity between on-premises and AWS. As such, the most cost-effective method to establish this type of connection is implement an AWS site-to-site VPN connection. Thus, the correct option is D. AWS site-to-site VPN provides a secure, cost-effective connection between on-premises and AWS, is quick to set up, and is suitable for low bandwidth traffic. Question 9. A company is planning to deploy its applications on an Amazon Aurora PostgreSQL serverless V2 cluster. The application will receive large amounts of traffic. The company wants to optimize the storage performance of the cluster as the load on the application increases. Which solution will meet these requirements most cost effectively? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A. Configure the cluster to use the Aurora Standard Storage configuration. Aurora Standard Storage configuration does not exist as a specific option. Then we have B. Configure the cluster storage type as provisioned IOPS. Provisioned IOPS is more expensive and is only needed for consistently high IOPS requirements. Then we have D. Configure the cluster to use the Aurora IO optimized storage configuration. Aurora IO optimized is designed for high throughput workloads but incurs higher costs, making it less cost effective for general use. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements most cost effectively is configure the cluster storage type as general purpose. Thus, the correct option is C. General purpose storage offers a cost effective balance between performance and cost, making it suitable for workloads with varying traffic patterns in Aurora PostgreSQL Serverless V2. Question 10. A company has a business critical application that runs on Amazon EC2 instances. The application stores data in an Amazon DynamoDB table. The company must be able to revert the table to any point within the last 24 hours. Which solution meets these requirements with the least operational overhead? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have B. Use AWS backup for the table. AWS backup can backup DynamoDB, but PITR is a more direct and automated solution for this requirement. Then we have C. Use an AWS Lambda function to make an on-demand backup of the table every hour. A Lambda function with hourly backups increases operational overhead and does not provide second-level recovery. Then we have D. Turn on streams. Turn on streams on the table to capture a log of all changes to the table in the last 24 hours. Store a copy of the stream in an Amazon S3 bucket. DynamoDB streams track changes but do not provide an automated way to revert the table to a specific point in time. As such, the solution that meets these requirements with the least operational overhead is to configure point in time recovery for the table. Thus, the correct option is A. Point in time recovery for DynamoDB enables automatic backups and allows restoring the tables to any second within the last 24 hours with minimal operational effort. Question 11. A company has 150 TB of archived image data stored on a premises that needs to be moved to the AWS cloud within the next month. The company's current network collection allows up to 100 Mbps uploads for this purpose during the night only. What is the most cost effective mechanism to move this data and meet the migration deadline? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A. Use AWS Snowmobile to ship the data to AWS. AWS Snowmobile is designed for exabyte scale data transfers, which is excessive for 150 TB. Then we have C. Enable Amazon S3 transfer acceleration and securely upload the data. S3 transfer acceleration speeds up internet transfers but is still limited by the 100 Mbps connection, making it too slow for 150 TB in 1 month. Then we have D. Create an Amazon S3 VPC endpoint and establish a VPN to upload the data. An S3 VPS endpoint and VPN do not improve upload speed significantly and would not meet the migration deadline. As such, the most cost effective mechanism to move this data and meet the migration deadline is to order multiple AWS Snowball devices to ship the data to AWS. Thus, the correct option is B. AWS Snowball is a cost-effective solution for transferring large amounts of data quickly by physically shipping storage devices to AWS, ensuring migration within the required time frame. Question 12. Company's data platform uses an Amazon Aurora MySQL database. The database has multiple read replicas and multiple DB instances across different availability zones. Users have recently reported errors from the database that indicate that there are too many connections. The company wants to reduce the failover time by 20% when a read replica is promoted to primary writer. Which solution will meet this requirement? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, switch from Aurora to Amazon RDS with multi-AZ cluster deployment. Switching to RDS multi-AZ does not necessarily reduce failover time compared to Aurora. Then we have C, switch to Amazon DynamoDB with DynamoDB Accelerator for read connections. DynamoDB with the DAX is a NoSQL solution, which is not a direct replacement for Aurora MySQL. Then we have D, switch to Amazon Redshift with relocation capability. Amazon Redshift is a data warehouse not suitable for transactional database workloads. As such, the solution that will meet this requirement is use Amazon RDS proxy in front of the Aurora database. Thus, the correct option is B. Amazon RDS proxy manages database connections efficiently, reducing connection-related errors and improving failover performance when a read replica is promoted to primary. Question 13. A company is deploying an application that processes streaming data in near real time. The company plans to use Amazon EC2 instances for the workload. The network architecture must be configurable to provide the lowest possible latency between nodes. Which combination of network solutions will meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have B, group the EC2 instances in separate accounts. Placing instances in separate accounts does not affect network latency within AWS. Then we have D, attach multiple elastic networks interfaces to each EC2 instance. Multiple ENIs provide additional IP addresses but do not reduce latency between instances. Then we have E, use Amazon Elastic Block Store optimized instance types. EBS optimized instance improve storage performance, not network latency. As such, the combination of network solutions that will meet these requirements is to enable and configure enhanced networking on each EC2 instance and run the EC2 instances in a cluster placement group. Thus, the correct option is A and C. About the options, enhanced networking provides higher bandwidth, higher packet per second performance, and consistently lower inter-instance latencies. A cluster placement group is a logical grouping of instances within a single availability zone. This configuration is recommended for applications that need low network latency, high network throughput, or both. Question 14. A company is designing a new web service that will run on Amazon EC2 instances behind an elastic load balancer. However, many of the web service clients can only reach IP addresses authorized on their firewalls. What should a solutions architect recommend to meet the client's needs? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have B, an application load balancer with an associated elastic IP address. An application load balancer does not support static IPs, making it unsuitable for clients needing authorized IP addresses. Then we have C, an A record in an Amazon Route 53 hosted zone pointing to an elastic IP address. An A record in Route 53 can point to an elastic IP, but this only works for a single EC2 instance, not a scalable load balance setup. Since the question specifies using a load balancer, this option is not the best choice. Then we have D, an EC2 instance with a public IP address running as a proxy in front of the load balancer. Running a proxy EC2 instance with a public IP introduces a single point of failure and does not provide load balancing benefits. As such, a solutions architect should recommend a network load balancer with an associated elastic IP address. Thus, the correct option is A. A network load balancer allows you to associate static elastic IP addresses which clients can whitelist in their firewalls. This meets the requirement while providing load balancing and scalability. Question 15. Company has an application that uses an Amazon DynamoDB table for storage. A solutions architect discovers that many requests to the table are not returning the latest data. The company's users have not reported any other issues with the database performance. Latency is in an acceptable range. Which design change should the solutions architect recommend? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, add read replicas to the table. DynamoDB does not support read replicas like traditional databases. Scaling read capacity is done through read capacity units and eventually consistent reads. Then we have B, use a global secondary index. A GSI improves query flexibility but does not guarantee up-to-date data retrieval. GSIs are also eventually consistent by default. Then we have D, request eventually consistent reads for the table. Eventually consistent reads prioritize availability and performance but do not guarantee the latest data, which contradicts the requirement. As such, the design change that the solutions architect should recommend is to request strongly consistent reads for the table. Thus, the correct option is C. By default, DynamoDB uses eventually consistent reads which may return stale data. To ensure the latest data is always retrieved, strongly consistent reads must be explicitly requested. Question 16. A company stores critical data in Amazon DynamoDB tables in the company's AWS account. An IT administrator accidentally deleted a DynamoDB table. The deletion caused a significant loss of data and disrupted the company's operations. The company wants to prevent this type of disruption in the future. Which solution will meet this requirement with the least operational overhead? Firstly, let's eliminate the correct options. We have A, this is incorrect. Using CloudTrail, EventBridge, and Lambda to restore deleted tables is complex and reactive rather than preventive. It also requires additional setup and maintenance. Then we have B, it is also incorrect. A backup and restore plan helps recover data but does not prevent deletion, meaning data loss and downtime still occur. Then we have D, it is also incorrect. Point in time recovery allows rolling back to a previous state but does not prevent accidental table deletion. Once a table is deleted, PITR is also deleted, making recovery impossible. As such, the solution that will meet this requirement with the least operational overhead is to configure deletion protection on the DynamoDB tables. Thus, the correct option is C. Deletion protection prevents accidental deletion of DynamoDB tables, ensuring that critical data is not lost due to human errors. The solution has low operational overhead since it is a built-in feature requiring no additional configurations. Question 17. A company maintains about 300 TB in Amazon S3 standard storage month after month. The S3 objects are each typically around 50 GB in size and are frequently replaced with multi-part uploads by their global application. The number and size of S3 objects remain constant, but the company's S3 storage costs are increasing each month. How should a solutions architect reduce costs in this situation? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, switch from multi-part uploads to Amazon S3 transfer acceleration. S3 transfer acceleration speeds up uploads but does not reduce storage costs. Then we have C, configure S3 inventory to prevent objects from being archived too quickly. S3 inventory provides visibility into stored objects but does not prevent unnecessary costs from incomplete multi-part uploads. Then we have D, configure Amazon CloudFront to reduce the number of objects stored in Amazon S3. CloudFront caches data but does not reduce storage costs since the object still exists in S3. As such, a solutions architect reduces cost in this situation by enabling an S3 lifecycle policy that deletes incomplete multi-part uploads. Thus, the correct option is B. Incomplete multi-part uploads can accumulate in Amazon S3, leading to unnecessary storage costs. Enabling an S3 lifecycle policy to automatically delete incomplete uploads helps reduce storage costs without impacting functionality. Question 18. Company's website hosted on Amazon EC2 instances processes classified data stored in Amazon S3. Due to security concerns, the company requires a private and secure connection between its EC2 resources and Amazon S3. Which solution meets these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have B, set up an IAM policy to grant read-write access to the S3 bucket. IAM policies control permissions but do not enforce private connectivity, meaning traffic could still go over the public internet. Then we have C, set up a NAT gateway to access resources outside the private subnet. A NAT gateway allows outbound internet access but does not provide a private connection to S3. It also incurs necessary costs. Then we have D, set up an access key ID and a secret access key to access the S3 bucket. Access keys authenticate requests but do not ensure private connectivity. They still use the public internet by default. As such, the solution that meets these requirements is to set up S3 bucket policies to allow access from a VPC endpoint. Thus, the correct option is A. VPC endpoints for Amazon S3 enable secure private connections between EC2 instances and S3 without using the public internet. Configuring S3 bucket policies to allow access from a VPC endpoint ensures that only authorized resources within the VPC can access the data. Question 19. A company wants to use NAT gateways in its AWS environment. The company's Amazon EC2 instances in private subnets must be able to connect to the public internet through the NAT gateways. Which solution will meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, create public NAT gateways in the same private subnets as the EC2 instances. Public NAT gateways cannot be deployed in private subnets. They must be in a public subnet. Then we have B, create private NAT gateways in the same private subnets as the EC2 instances. Private NAT gateways only allow communication between private subnets, not access to the public internet. Then we have D, create private NAT gateways in public subnets in the same VPCs as the EC2 instances. Private NAT gateways in public subnets is an incorrect configuration since private NAT is meant for internal traffic. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements is to create a public NAT gateway in public subnets in the same VPCs as the EC2 instances. Thus, the correct option is C. A public NAT gateway must be deployed in a public subnet with an elastic IP address to enable EC2 instances in private subnets to access the public internet while keeping inbound traffic blocked. Question 20. Company has NFS servers in an on-premises data center that need to periodically back up small amounts of data to Amazon S3. Which solution meets these requirements and is most cost effective? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, it is incorrect. AWS Glue is used for ETL operations, not simple file synchronization. Then we have C, this is also incorrect. AWS transfer for SFTP is for secure file transfers over SFTP, which is unnecessary for NFS based backups. Then we have D, this is also incorrect. AWS Direct Connect is expensive and not needed for small periodic backups. As such, the solution that meets these requirements in the most cost-effective way is to set up an AWS data sync agent on the on-premises servers and sync the data to Amazon S3. Thus, the correct option is B. AWS Data Sync is optimized for periodic transfers of data from on-premises NFS servers to Amazon S3. It is cost-effective, easy to automate, and designed for efficient data movement. Question 21. Company is deploying an application in three AWS regions using an application load balancer. Amazon Route 53 will be used to distribute traffic between these regions. Which Route 53 configuration should a solutions architect use to provide the most high performing experience? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, create an A record with a latency policy. Latency-based routing is used to direct users to the region with lowest measured latency, but it may not always align with geographic proximity. Then we have C, create a CNAME record with a failover policy. Failover routing is used for high availability, not performance optimization. Then we have D, create a CNAME record with a geoproximity policy. Geoproximity routing adjusts traffic based on a bias setting, but is more complex and typically not the most efficient for performance. As such, the Route 53 configuration that a solutions architect should use is to create an A record with a geolocation policy. Thus, the correct option is B. Geolocation routing in Route 53 directs users to the nearest AWS region based on their geographic location, ensuring the lowest latency and best performance. Question 22. A company's e-commerce website has unpredictable traffic and uses AWS Lambda functions to directly access a private Amazon RDS for PostgreSQL DB instance. The company wants to maintain predictable database performance and ensure that the Lambda invocations do not overload the database with too many connections. What should a solutions architect do to meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, this is incorrect. RDS custom endpoints are for Amazon RDS custom, which is not applicable here. Then we have C, it is also incorrect. Deploying Lambda functions outside a VPC prevents direct access to a private RDS instance. Then we have D, this is also incorrect. RDS proxy is correct, but Lambda functions must be inside a VPC to access a private RDS instance. As such, in order to meet these requirements, the solutions architect should point the client driver at an RDS proxy endpoint, deploy the Lambda functions inside a VPC. Thus, the correct option is B. Amazon RDS proxy manages database connections efficiently, preventing Lambda functions from overloading the database with too many connections. Deploying the Lambda function inside a VPC allows them to securely access the private Amazon RDS for PostgreSQL instance. Question 23. A company wants to back up its on-premises virtual machines to AWS. The company's backup solution exports on-premises backups to an Amazon S3 bucket as objects. The S3 backups must be retained for 30 days and must be automatically deleted after 30 days. Which combination of steps will meet these requirements? Choose 3. Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have B, create an S3 bucket that has object versioning enabled. Object versioning retains multiple versions of objects, increasing storage costs without enforcing deletion. Then we have D, configure an S3 lifecycle policy to protect the objects for 30 days. Lifecycle policies do not protect objects, they only transition or delete them. Then we have F, configure the backup solution to tag the objects with a 30-day retention period. Tagging objects with a retention period does not enforce actual deletion or protection. As such, the combination of steps that will meet these requirements is to create an S3 bucket that has S3 object lock enabled, configure a default retention period of 30 days for the objects, and configure an S3 lifecycle policy to expire the objects after 30 days. Thus, the correct options are A, C, and E. About the options, S3 object lock ensures data retention and prevents premature deletion. A default retention period of 30 days ensures that objects are protected from deletion before that time. An S3 lifecycle policy set to expire objects after 30 days ensures automatic deletion, meeting retention requirements. Question 24. A marketing company receives a large amount of new clickstream data in Amazon S3 from a marketing campaign. The company needs to analyze the clickstream data in Amazon S3 quickly. Then the company needs to determine whether to process the data further in the data pipeline. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, Create external tables in a Spark catalog. Configure jobs in AWS Glue. Query the data. Spark catalog with AWS Glue requires more configuration and job management, increasing operational overhead. Then we have C, create external tables in a Hive metastore. Configure Spark jobs in Amazon EMR. Query the data. Hive Metastore with Amazon EMR requires provisioning, managing, and maintaining an EMR cluster, making it less cost effective. Then we have D, configure an AWS Glue crawler to crawl the data. Configure Amazon Kinesis Data Analytics to use SQL, query the data. Kinesis Data Analytics is designed for real time streaming data, not batch processing of stored S3 data, making it unsuitable for this use case. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements is to configure an AWS Glue crawler to crawl the data, configure Amazon Athena to query the data. Thus, the correct option is B. AWS Glue is a fully managed ETL service, and Athena is a serverless query service that allows you to analyze data directly in Amazon S3 using SQL queries. By configuring an AWS Glue crawler to crawl the data, you can create a schema for the data and then use Athena to query the data without the need to load it into a separate database. This minimizes operational overhead. Question 25. Company runs its applications on Amazon EC2 instances. The company performs periodic financial assessments of its AWS costs. The company recently identified unusual spending. The company needs a solution to prevent unusual spending. The solution must monitor costs and notify responsible stakeholders in the event of unusual spending. Which solution will meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, use an AWS budgets template to create a zero spend budget. AWS budgets with a zero spend budget is not practical since it would trigger alerts even for normal usage, not just anomalies. Then we have T, create AWS pricing calculator estimates for the current running workload, pricing details. AWS pricing calculator only provides cost estimates but does not monitor or detect anomalies in spending. Then we have D, use Amazon CloudWatch to monitor costs and to identify unusual spending. Amazon CloudWatch is used for monitoring application and system metrics, not cost monitoring. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements is to create an AWS cost anomaly detection monitor in the AWS billing and cost management console. Thus, the correct option is B. AWS cost anomaly detection is designed to automatically detect unusual spending patterns based on machine learning algorithms. It can identify anomalies and send notifications when it detects unexpected changes in spending. This aligns well with the requirement to prevent unusual spending and notify stakeholders. Question 26. A company performs tests on an application that uses an Amazon Dynamo DB table. The test runs for 4 hours once a week. The company knows how many read and write operations the application performs to the table each second during the tests. The company does not currently use DynamoDB for any other use case. A solutions architect needs to optimize the costs for the table. Which solution will meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, choose on-demand mode. Operate the read and write capacity units appropriately. On-demand mode is better for unpredictable workloads, but cost more for workloads with known steady access patterns. Then we have C and D, purchase DynamoDB reserved capacity for a 1 year term and purchase DynamoDB reserved capacity for a 3 year term. Reserved capacity is beneficial for continuous high usage, but since the table is only used 4 hours per week, reserved capacity would waste money. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements is to choose provisioned mode, update the read and write capacity units appropriately. Thus, the correct option is B. Provisioned mode allows you to specify the desired read and write capacity units. Since the workload occurs once a week for 4 hours, you can provision the read and write capacity units accordingly to handle the expected load during that time. This can be more cost-effective option than on-demand pricing for predictable workloads. Question 27. A company has customers located across the world. The company wants to use automation to secure its systems and network infrastructure. The company's security team must be able to track and audit all incremental changes to the infrastructure. Which solution will meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A and B. Use AWS organizations to set up the infrastructure. Use AWS config to track changes. And use AWS organizations to set up the infrastructure. Use AWS service catalog to track changes. AWS organizations helps manage multiple AWS accounts but does not automate infrastructure setup or track incremental changes. Then we have D, use AWS CloudFormation to set up the infrastructure. Use AWS Service Catalog to track changes. AWS Service Catalog is for managing approved IT resources, not tracking incremental infrastructure changes. As such, the solution that will meet these requirements is to use AWS CloudFormation to set up the infrastructure and use AWS config to track changes. Thus, the correct option is C. AWS CloudFormation enables automation for infrastructure setup, while AWS Config provides tracking and auditing of incremental changes to infrastructure, ensuring compliance and security. Question 28. Company is relocating its data center and wants to securely transfer 50 TB of data to AWS within 2 weeks. The existing data center has a site-to-site VPN connection to AWS that is 90% utilized. Which AWS service should a solutions architect use to meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have A, AWS Data Sync with a VPC endpoint. Data sync is network dependent, and since the VPN is 90% utilized, it is not feasible for transferring 50 TB within 2 weeks. Then we have B, AWS Direct Connect. While Direct Connect offers a dedicated high bandwidth link, setting it up takes weeks to months, making it unsuitable for the given time frame. Then we have D, AWS Storage Gateway. This is not a data transfer solution, but a hybrid storage service for integrating on-premises storage with AWS. As such, the AWS service that a solutions architect should use is AWS Snowball Edge Storage Optimized. Thus, the correct option is C. AWS Snowball Edge Storage Optimized is the best choice for securely transferring 50 KB of data within 2 weeks. It provides a high speed, secure data transfer mechanism without impacting the existing VPN connection, which is already 90% utilized. Which is already 90% utilized. Question 29. A company wants to run a gaming application on Amazon EC2 instances that are part of an auto-scaling group in the AWS cloud. The application will transmit data by using UDP packets. The company wants to ensure that the application can scale out and in as traffic increases and decreases. What should a solutions architect do to meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the incorrect options. We have B, attach an ALB to the autoscaling group. ALB only supports HTTP/HTTPS and WebSockets. Since the application uses UDP packets, ALB is not a suitable choice. Then we have C, deploy an Amazon Route 53 record set with a weighted policy to route traffic appropriately. While Route 53 can distribute traffic, it does not provide automatic scaling or load balancing between EC2 instances. Then we have D, deploy a NAT instance that is configured with port forwarding to the EC2 instances in the auto-scaling group. NAT instances are not meant for load balancing and do not scale efficiently with traffic changes. As such, in order to meet these requirements, our solutions architect should attach a network load balancer to the auto-scaling group. Thus, the correct option is A. NLB supports UDP traffic and is designed for high performance, low latency, and automatic scaling. It can handle large amounts of traffic and ensures smooth scaling of the auto scaling group. Question 30. Company is hosting a website behind multiple application load balancers. The company has different distribution rights for its content around the world. A solutions architect needs to ensure that users are served the correct content without violating distribution rights. Which configuration should the solutions architect choose to meet these requirements? Firstly, let's eliminate the correct options. We have A. Configure Amazon CloudFront with AWS WAF. CloudFront plus WAF does not control content based on geography. Then we have B. Configure application load balancers with AWS WAF. ALB plus WAF lacks geolocation based routing. Then we have D. Configure Amazon Route 53 with a geo-proximity routing policy. Geo-proximity adjusts by distance, not strict regional rules. As such, the configuration that the solutions architect should choose is to configure Amazon Route 53 with a geolocation policy. Thus, the correct option is C. Amazon Route 53 geolocation routing policy allows routing users based on their geographic location. This ensures that users receive the correct content based on distribution rights without violating any restrictions. These were all the questions for this video. You can find the complete PDF of this video and our practice questions through the link down in the description. We will be publishing more parts to this series in the future, so please make sure to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.